Ladies and gentlemen, we meet again towards Parashat Shemot coming up soon, and we have to take a look at the whole book. We're starting a whole new book, and in English we call it Exodus, in Hebrew we call it Shemot, but the Ramban calls it the Sefer HaGeulah, the Book of Redemption. However, I'd like to delve into the Torah of the Netziv. The Netziv of Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin was one of the greatest rabbis in East Europe in the 19th century. And in his introduction to Sefer Shemot, he writes that this is actually the second book. He says Bereshis is the first book, and Shemot is the second book. But then the third book is already Leviticus, which is Torah Kohanim, and Bamidbar Numbers, the Chumash Pekudim, and Dvorim is Deuteronomy, Mishnah Torah. But it's the second book. What does it mean, the second book? It's the second book of creation. There's the first book of creation, which is Bereshit, and the second book of creation, which is Shemot. Let's delve into this a moment. What does that really mean? We can find something interesting in the moment Moshe was born. The Pasuk says in our Parsha, when Moshe was born, that his mother saw that he was a special kid, Vatere oto kitov. She saw he was a special kid, Vatitzpeneu shlosha yirachim, and she hid him away for 3 months. What does it mean, kitov? What does that mean? So Chachamim tell us that she saw, but nitmala kol habayit over. That's the Gemara in Sotah Yudbet says the whole house was full of light. This little boy was born, the whole house is full of light. What kind of light is filled by a little boy? How does this happen exactly? So we have to go back. If that is the beginning of Sefer Shemot, we have to go back to the beginning of Sefer Bereshit. And what do we say? See, that the beginning of creation. At the beginning of creation, what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates the light. That's the first creation. And what does he say about the light? Vaya Elokim et ha'or ki tov. This light was good. The whole universe was illuminated by this light. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu put it away. Chazal tell us, Gnazor HaKadosh Baruch Hu letzadikim la'atid lavo. This is a special light, a special spiritual light, which the universe is not ready to accept yet. And therefore, the light we have in our world was created on the 4th day of creation. The sun and the moon and the stars. But this special light of the first day was put away for future tzaddikim. Who are the future tzaddikim? Future tzaddikim like Moshe Rabbeinu. When the moment they were born, so we see a parallel between the beginning of Bereshit and the beginning of Shemot. But what is the process we're going through in Bereshit? And what's the process we're going through in Shemot? So we have to have a look. In Bereshit, HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates the first man and woman. And he wants to find the first tzaddik, but they fail. Adam and Chava fail. And they sin. And then their children, Cain and Hevel, sin. And then from there it goes from bad to worse. Until HaKadosh Baruch Hu has to delete the world and chooses Noach. Noach, tzaddik lefana. Maybe this is the tzaddik I've been looking for. And he does the flood. And but then also Noach ends up being Isha Adamo. He becomes a very simple man, gets drunk, and he continues deteriorating and Migdal Bovel and terrible things until there's a turning point. Turning point is Avraham. Avraham says Hineni. And then Yitzchak is an upgrading. It says Hineni. And Yaakov is an upgrading of Yitzchak. It says Hineni. And then the book of Bereshit ends with 4 parashas about Yosef to show that he was a tzaddik from the beginning to end. And the book of Bereshit ends with the death of Yosef, 110 years old. He was a tzaddik till the last day of his life. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to create a tzaddik. It took a long time. All the way down, all the way up. But the turning point was Avraham Avinu, but the final tzaddik. So the first book is about creating the first tzaddik. But now the second book is a different book. It talks about creating a nation of tzaddikim. And to have a nation of tzaddikim, you need to get them cooking in Egypt and going through hardships in Egypt to purify them, to make them care for each other. And then they go out to Yetzias Mitzrayim, Mamad HaSinai, getting the Torah, and they're building the Mishkan. And we move from the story of Moshe Rabbeinu meeting HaKadosh Baruch Hu at the burning bush, an individual meeting HaKadosh Baruch Hu once at the burning bush, to the end of Sefer Shmos, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself is settled in the Mishkan, that all of Am Yisrael can see HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with them all the time. So it's a transaction. The first book, Bereshit, is a transaction to find the first tzaddik, and the second book is a transaction from finding one meeting with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, accidental meeting at the burning bush, to a whole nation being with HaKadosh Baruch Hu all the time in the Mishkan, in the Mikdash. And then we could be Mamlechet Kohanim V'Goy Kadosh. We could be a nation of Kohanim. We could be a special people, but we needed to go through a educational process. So who is leading the educational process? The person who's leading the educational process is called Moshe Rabbeinu. Until today, he's called Moshe, our teacher. In what way was he our teacher? He taught us. He taught us sensitivity. What stories do we know about Moshe Rabbeinu before he took upon himself this incredible exodus? First story we know is he saw that an Egyptian was mistreating a Jewish person, and he got involved. He couldn't see this. And he got involved. And the second story were two Jewish people mistreating each other, and he got involved, and he solved the problem. And then the third story is he goes to the well, and he sees that the daughters of Yisrael in Midian are mistreated by all the shepherds. So he goes in, he is sensitive. He teaches us to be sensitive to other people's hardships. He is Moshe Rabbeinu. He's Moshe, our teacher. And this is before Torah. This is Derech Eretz, Shekodmo LaTorah. This is the right attitude. Finding the right attitude. Before we accept the Torah, we have to have the right mindset. And that is being sensitive to other people's troubles. And that is how this is the second book. It's a book that we are being taught to be a nation, an Am Kodosh, a holy nation. And he is our leader. And this, I must say, is our situation just now in Israel. Just now in Israel, we're still at war. We have to be sensitive to women whose husbands are already hundreds of days in service, in national service, in the IDF. And therefore, they've lost their income and they've lost them. And they haven't had a husband for hundreds of days. We have to be sensitive to those families who lost a member of their family, whether they lost a son or a husband or a father. We have to be sensitive to the adults. We have to be sensitive to those who were wounded and their families. We have to be sensitive to those people who have sons or daughters or spouses or parents who are hostages. We have to be sensitive to each and every individual. At the same time, we mustn't lose sight of it. We mustn't lose sight of where we're coming from and where we're going to. What has happened in this war? What has happened to Am Yisrael in this war? What incredible nissim we've seen in this war. To what extent we have taken over Gaza, we've taken over Lebanon, we've taken over parts of Syria. Baruch Hashem, we've had great success. We must remember the bigger picture. On the other hand, we have to always remember the smaller picture, the sensitivity to each and every individual. And that's what Moshe Rabbeinu is teaching us. We have to learn from this parsha always to be sensitive to the bigger picture, whilst never forgetting the individuals and the sensitivity to the smaller picture. Help each and every one. Shabbat Shalom.